Hello, everyone. My name is Valentine Amatrading. My background is primarily in warehousing and inventory control. I became involved in inventory control as an evolution from dealing with inventory issues while I was in the warehouse as an order selector and forklift operator. Part of the reason for my interest in coding is because of my desire to be more involved. I worked in a location that was implementing a new inventory management system, and while I was a forklift operator, not specifically part of the business, my input was extremely limited and I had little to no impact in the ultimate implementation of that system. I feel that had I been more on the business side and more involved, I could have provided real input and the implementation would have been even more successful. And that leads me to my presentation today on my just personal interests in specifically peppers, but just growing my own food and how that led to my wanting to at least get a cursory look at just the food exports. And so I'll go ahead and just start my story simply at the beginning. So I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and the long story short of it was that I had realized that I hadn't grown anything that I had eaten up to this point in my life. And so I felt that was kind of strange. And so when I went about trying to correct that and picked a poblano plant out of some seeds that I had, and did a fair amount of research and kind of looked on the net trying to figure out what to do. And as you can see through these pictures, just figured out what I needed to do from that information and started just started growing my plants, and things went along fine. And as I was involved in that, kind of just thought to myself, this is a lot easier than I thought. I understand that it's just a hobby and I'm small scale, but I didn't appreciate nearly what I didn't understand quite what the big deal is. And I kind of really thought that I was really beginning to get it until I realized I didn't know anything. As you can see on the with the plant on the right, actually both these plants were chemically burned, and I just absolutely torched the the plant on the right. And what was I saying? Uh, this plant definitely was trying to do its little best impersonation of a Charlie Brown Christmas tree, because that plant, if I remember correctly, even lost one or two of its leaves. And as you can see, it only has four of them in this picture as it is. And so, just going through these different issues and just trying to develop even my basic skills, I kind of really started thinking about the idea of farming and the idea of, just growing your own food. And in my specific situation, in the reality that I live in, that I could just, take it or leave it and ultimately just go walking in almost any direction, no more than a couple of miles, and hit up different stores and supermarkets and not have to worry about food at all, as opposed to 100 years ago or more when this is how you fed your family and literally survived. And even though uh, this wasn't my first topic of choice, ultimately I did find that interesting and thought that, I would take maybe a cursory look at just food, the food industry as far as imports and exports, and just see what, the information, see what the information had. And by the way, this plant on the right, just to show this picture on the left was from, I believe, a month and a half later, and this picture on the right here um, was the end of August. And so, in that time period, I just learned more than anything, just to uh, it's not even about having a green thumb or not. It's literally about learning how to get out the way of the plants and knowing when to intervene. And then other than that, knowing when to just leave it alone, basically do as little as possible. But so anyway, I went ahead and decided to uh, focus on, just get a how should I say, cursory look at the imports and exports. And so I decided to just look at the year 2020. And as you can see in this tree map, again, just putting together just the year of imports and exports, and just seeing what the surplus was with certain countries and the uh, uh, deficit was with certain other countries. And I had no idea that, for instance, the Netherlands and Hong Kong, we have good trade relations, at least as far as food, as you can see here. Some of these other countries, I had no idea what information I was looking at in the beginning. And so this was all new to me. And same thing with this chart as well. This is the bottom 10 countries, or the 10 countries that we have the largest deficit with as far as food exports. And I knew that we had, fairly large numbers with China, did not realize at all with Mexico. But just as I went through just this basic level of just looking at the information, it was kind of beginning to give me a better idea what was going on. And so I decided to focus just on exports, and started to look a little bit more in depth at the information that was available at the Census Bureau, and started to process the information, started downloading the different years. I decided to work with 3 full years from 2018 to 2020, and included at the time that I put this together, the information for 2021 was available through August. And so in my initial sorting with Python, things were coming along reasonably well. And, working with the Excel sheets, everything that's from the Census Bureau is in Excel sheet format. But I noticed, as I can show here with this sheet right here, that visually, as far as just looking at the sheet and interpreting the information as a human, it looks fine and there are no real issues. But at trying to import it into Tableau, or any kind of trying to work with it at all with Python, presented some issues. Just even simply as the picture on the left here, the header is actually 2 lines. And this is after the picture on the right is after I had deleted and kind of made a couple of basic changes to the sheet. And even just things like that helped with the correlation of the data as far as working with Python. And just my working with Excel, just even in the basic levels, basic degree rather, just because it was easier to, rather than try to figure out exactly what kind of code I needed to, is to literally just delete a line and maybe retype a little bit of information. But the more I got involved with the data, and the more I wanted to try and unify the different headers and the different information so I can import it all directly, I just found myself working with Excel more, and which led to this, reshaping the different tables further. And the other reason that I decided to go with Excel focused a little bit more, at least with the different information I had from the Census Bureau, was because I wanted to preserve the different months specifically, and then have the different months of a year be able to be preserved as well. And so I found a macro, used that to be able to basically combine all that information into ultimately one workbook. It was divided by month and by year, but still separate, at least as far as the individual month information. And so I was able to combine all that information, and just to make it easier to import into Tableau, and have all the information be imported accurately and correctly. And so the different calculations as far as the information relating to each other is as accurate as possible. And so that led to being able to look again, more just a cursory look, but at more time and looking at the years 2018, 2019, and 2020, and not realizing quite that things have, or, just as you can see here, that basically the Netherlands and Hong Kong, the two countries that we have the most favorable uh, food surplus, hasn't changed much. The actual difference between 2018 and 2020, the different countries have maybe switched places, but the amounts haven't really changed a whole lot, as opposed to the deficit, which does show, even just with this simple tree map, definite change, that we have been able to get the deficit from China down from $419 billion down in 2018 down to 310 billion in 2020. And so I decided to just focus on exports and wanted to, again, just kind of before I tried to get the information down to more of a detailed item level, just take another look at the different years, including 2021. And I apologize for the uh, layout of this chart. It's not exactly as I wanted. I was able to figure out how to project the what should be the yearly total for 2021, but I wasn't able to figure out how to uh, remove the projected area right here for the other 3 years and sort this out as far as the totals. That's something I'll figure out here in the next little while. But what we could do is just focus on these numbers as far as the actuals for 2018, 2019, and 2020. And as far as the actual for 2021, this is the 105,883 is the actual number for the actual for 2021. And the projected for 2021 is the 158,825 number. And so that seems a little high, but this is a linear projection. And I realize the actuals probably won't reflect a number quite like that. That's why I'm looking forward to getting the information from 2021 and revisiting this and kind of re-entering and adding additional information to get more of an accurate look at that. So here's a look at more of the specific exports that we had by item, ordered in the, from the top to the bottom, the highest dollar amount in export. And again, this is just a kind of a cursory look at this for myself, just to understand, just some of the different different products that are being exported in the amounts. I didn't appreciate that we exported that much in soybeans or meat and poultry and corn, for instance. And so as I was looking at this and trying to just, understand the information, I decided to use this chart. And I'm not going to lie, partially just because it looks cool, but partially also because the way I had it explained to me, I was just trying to use things that, I wasn't familiar with to better understand things. And so what this chart is a box and whisker chart that shows the top 5 exports. And the way this works is it's a simple quarter, how should I say that? It's the percentiles in just quarters. I suppose the easiest way to explain it would be, this is 0, this is 25, roughly in the middle would be 50, this is 75, this is 100. And with the chart, you can have outliers depending on the data that you're working with if you wanted to display that. And especially with the way this is laid out, 2018 is probably the closest to something that's fairly well balanced. But you could show relations through a full year with this shaded area, and with the shaded area, whether it's lighter or darker, it kind of shows movement depending on the product like here I'll show with the soybeans in 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021. When the shaded areas are large like this, it suggests volatility. And especially with the way I have this chart oriented, uh, the shaded areas are trying to ultimately represent this. It's a different way of looking at uh, this kind of information. This red line, for instance, is the soybeans, and that's where that represented volatility was coming from. As you can see, there's a lot of different movement as far as the different amounts through the months, as opposed to how it's represented here. This is just a nice way to maybe represent information like that in a single column, as opposed to your more traditional chart. And so again, I was just taking in the information, looking at the top three here, and it is interesting that even with this chart that you could see right here in March 2020, when the lockdown took place, that things were definitely affected as opposed to 2019 and definitely 2018. And one of the things that I wanted to say was just that with this information, I have also processed information with imports, and I was looking forward to adding up possibly some additional detail with information from the USDA, because the Census Bureau information only supplies certain amounts of information. But at least with the information I had provided and how I chose to focus today on just the exports, my ultimate conclusion is, for me personally, as I go to expand my just personal hobby, and I know I plan on growing more in different varied foods, as you can see with what we see in this chart here, maybe I should get into planting soybeans. And so thank you very much for taking the time to listen to my presentation here. And I would invite you to take a look at my profile on Tableau Public. I, in the near future here, plan on adding additional information, like I had said, with the information I have processed for imports as well. And I'm hoping to be able to correlate more detailed information with the USDA. I was going to try and find ultimately different other sources to where I could get more detailed information as far as more specific items, and tie them to different countries and have more of a detailed overall view of just exports and imports in general. But so thank you very much for your time. And yes.